Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is from Sky News Australia. TV host tears up at disturbing left-wing media attack on Charlie Kirk. Shame on all of them, but let's check it out.
Joining us now is Jack Houghton, host of the media show here at Sky News. Jack, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with MSNBC and other left-wing outlets' coverage of Charlie Kirk's assassination. MSNBC has been forced to apologise because of its coverage of Charlie Kirk's assassination. We'll read you the statement that has been put out from Rebecca Cutler. It says, during our breaking news coverage of the shooting of Charlie Kirk, Matthew Dowd made comments that were inappropriate, insensitive and unacceptable. We apologise for his statements, as has he. There is no place for violence in America, political or otherwise. And let's just take a look at why MSNBC was forced to apologise. Look at this.
Talk to me about the environment in which a shooting like this happens.
Yeah, and again, emphasize what you just emphasized. We don't know any of the full details of this. We don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea about this. But following up on what was just said, he's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions. And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt.
And that's the unfortunate environment we're in.
Jack, it is...
So imagine if people classify Charlie Kirk as a hateful person, then this world is doomed, like doomed.
just disgusting. They couldn't wait a day before they start trashing Charlie Kirk, saying his comments were divisive, that hateful speech led to this. What do you make of this?
It's some of the most despicable media coverage I think I've ever seen. A man, a father of two, he's murdered. These comments are made as he's dying. He wasn't yet declared dead at this point. And so rather than just reporting the mechanics of what's happened, rather than saying, at this point, he was shot in the neck with precision, by the way. So this whole notion that it could have somewhat been an accident by a supporter, to put that inference out there before you actually know what's happening is absolutely disgusting. But then to think, okay, the appropriate way to cover this story, this huge story, is to place some kind of characterization around him from a moral point of view is absolutely despicable. Now, to say that it is hate speech to take some of his positions, I think it's just absolutely appalling, because you've got in America, it appears to be one of the only countries in the world where if you oppose illegal immigration at the levels that they are experiencing, you're somewhat of an extremist. In Australia, left-wing parties and more conservative parties are in complete agreement that borders should be protected. No serious country adopts a policy that their borders shouldn't be protected. But we have news outlets who are supposed, they think that they're mainstream. I think that they're now on the fringe, and this is why people are moving towards more independent voices, because there is more integrity now. But you've got these people who are characterising that, of protecting your borders of a sovereign nation, as somewhat of an extremist viewpoint. Now, to say, I think the quote was, hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions. Now, think about that. That is a very deliberate argument that action was somewhat justified or deserved, or simply it's his own fault for having hateful rhetoric. I don't even accept that it is hateful rhetoric to suggest that there is a crime problem. But for a journalist or a commentator to put that viewpoint out there, I think is appalling. And I don't accept their apology. I don't think Americans should. And I think that they should face some kind of congressional inquiry for why they are heightening the temperature in America, and it's leading to multiple assassination attempts on conservatives.
Really well said, Jack. It's just absolutely disgusting. And you know what? I wish that was the only horrific statement that was made. It gets worse. Here's more coverage from MSNBC.
Charlie Kirk is a divisive figure, polarizing, lightning rod, whatever term you want to use. Why?
Well, he's one of MAGA's most prominent voices online. He hosts a near daily podcast. He opines on almost everything. He's been very closely aligned with the president since his initial run for office in 2015, 2016. And his ties to Trump really elevated his own brand. He was really quite young as an activist when the president launched his initial campaign, and he has kind of ridden along with MAGA.
Again, divisive figure. I mean, how on earth is that okay when someone, as you say, a husband, a father, has just been killed and he was loved by so many people, and we saw him, of course, lose his life doing what he loved, fighting for America, and made such a positive impact on so many people. He reached people right around the world. We're feeling it here in Australia. But those comments, divisive figure, I mean, he was someone that of course was happy to debate controversial issues. He didn't shy away from that.
Yes.
But I just do not accept that kind of language to describe Charlie Kirk on the day that he died. You know, you made the point about how he was fiercely debating strong borders, a policy we have here in Australia. It's not something that's really even that controversial. But even just a couple of days ago, Charlie Kirk was one of the leading voices on this issue of this horrific murder of a Ukrainian refugee, Irina Zarutska. And if it wasn't for people like Charlie Kirk, that story was getting pretty much dismissed by the mainstream media. But he was really leading the charge to call this out. And
the New York Times had to be dragged to the table to even cover it, and he was making these points and holding the media to account, wasn't he?
He absolutely was. And the thing is, CNN's coverage of Charlie Kirk's comments was saying that Charlie Kirk's comments were shameful when he made the point that this murder appeared to be racially motivated. It was a black man attacking, from the vision, it appears, you know, a white woman, and there's audio of the suspect who has been charged with the murder saying, "I got that white woman." So there is evidence that this appears to be racially motivated. Charlie Kirk stated the facts, calling that out. And then you have CNN saying Charlie Kirk should, you know, those comments were shameful. I mean, these outlets, MSNBC, CNN, I just do not understand how they justify some of this language.
Yeah, it's incredibly upsetting. And look, just talking with you, I can see that you're upset by it. You're a young conservative woman, and it's not easy being a conservative in today's world. And I think that I know that we both sometimes feel the pressure from outside. Making very considered and careful arguments is being hit with this new degree of hostility from the left and then from the mainstream, and people who are refusing to call it out. Now, if I want to make an argument that there should be less immigration in my country, that isn't an extremist viewpoint. No. It's a numbers game. It has nothing to do with race, first and foremost. It has to do with facilities and space and GDP. And it's an economic argument more than anything. Yeah. And we have these figures in Australia, in America, who consider themselves to be progressive, who absolutely delight at the demise of somebody who was a father, who left a wife behind and 2 children. And I think that is upsetting for anybody on the conservative side of politics. Of course. And how dare anybody in media trying to equate it with this both sides, well, everyone's responsible for the rhetoric. No, that's not true. There are people on the left who are extremists, and they are putting targets on the back of people that have very mainstream views that a couple of years ago were held by the majority. And obviously in America, one of the suggestions in that grab that you played was that he was divisive because of his links to President Donald Trump, who was a democratically elected president with the majority vote. So how could someone who has won the majority vote be this figure of division and extremism when the majority of people elected him? It is a denial of democracy. It is. It is disrespectful to every single conservative in the West, not just America, because this manifests broadly across borders. This is a problem that we are seeing all across the world, where we are tolerating the labelling of conservatives as being extremists. And what do you do if somebody is a far right? And you're saying somebody's far right, by the way. The furthest right you can be is a Nazi. What do you do to somebody who's a Nazi? You are justifying violence by using that label irresponsibly. If you don't use that label rationally and carefully, then you are justifying this sort of stuff. And MSNBC is the worst at this.
Yeah.
They're trying to do a rebrand because their own parent company can't stand some of the things they say, and they're trying to distance themselves from it. But politicians, I think, in this situation, they need to ask what these journalists are knowingly doing to the temperature. It's nothing to do with conservatives making arguments. It is to do with people on the left trying to assassinate mainstream conservative views.
You know, that is exactly right, Jack, and it's just absolutely terrifying to see this rise of extreme far left violence. We've seen this with Elon Musk, where people were encouraging.
Do you know that up until now, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that people watch Charlie Kirk's video and their take home is he's hateful. He's using hate speech. Is it that he was using hate speech, or he was saying something they didn't like? Because there's a huge difference. I think that's what they should have been saying. Oh, I don't like what he's saying. I think that's the most acceptable thing they would have said, or they should say, but not coming out to celebrate somebody, say he had it coming. You see videos where people are saying, oh, he had it coming for all the hateful things he was saying. Like, really? And it's okay for you to say that. So are those people then saying that it's okay for them to be unalive because they're saying things that people don't like? Is that the world that we now live in? If I say things, or if somebody say things that people don't like, it's okay for them to be unalived? Come on, guys, it doesn't make sense. When you watch that guy's clip, he was always respectful. He wanted to hear you. You will see him. You see Charlie Kirk, when he's done speaking and his opponent is speaking, he will drop his mic. Have you guys seen it? Because he didn't want it to even be tempted to speak. Of course, there are videos where he used to interrupt, but most of the videos, you see him dropping his mic. When he wants to speak, he'll pick up the mic again. And he was consistent in sharing his belief. This is what I believe. If you disagree, come to the table. Let's talk about it. How respectful can somebody be? Guys, until I see you next time, subscribe. Bye.